Hey there, welcome to another Slightly Redneck video. It's time for another quail update. Got a couple of questions to answer today about how many birds to keep per square feet, what time they prefer laying eggs, how I'm going to keep care of them in the winter, and a couple other things real quick. So let's get right into that. First question comes from a viewer by the name of Walt Lars, and he's asking me about the square foot of pen space per adult bird. And do they have a preferred time of day that they lay the eggs? And since my pen is 3 foot deep, how do you get your eggs way back there? All right, so let's start off by talking about the square footage of the cage. I got the cage opened up here so you can see. This cage is 3 feet deep by 6 feet, so that's 18 square feet. I've only got 15 birds in here right now, but I think I could easily get away with 20. Really about 1 square foot per bird is what you're looking for. If your birds are getting along really well, you can crowd it a little bit more than that. I say crowd, you can get a little bit more birds in there. With 15 birds in here, this isn't even at all slightly crowded. Some of them hang out in here, some of them are in there right now because I'm over here kind of pestering them, but there's no fighting, there's no bickering, they're getting along just fine. All right, as far as how I reach back into the back of the cage if I get eggs, I really don't have too many eggs that are laid back in the back corners of the cage. Since I put the sandboxes in the other side, they almost lay their eggs almost exclusively in those sandboxes. But if I do get an egg back there, the way that I do that, I've got my cage set up to where it's just a little above waist high, almost to my rib cages, and that makes it very easy for me. I just reach my head inside here, reach back into the back corners, I can reach around. Oh, freaking some birds out here. He also made a suggestion though in my video to maybe take one of the water cups or something similar to that, and you can put it on a stick and use that to reach back and grab things and drag them forward if you needed to. Great suggestion for that. It's not been a problem for me. I can get in here and reach back just fine, but that's a great suggestion and it's a great tip, so thanks for sharing that. As far as the preferred time of laying, my birds lay their eggs almost exclusively at night. Well, I say night, late afternoon, early evening. Somewhere between maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon till about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. I usually come and collect the eggs right after dark, and all the eggs are laid at that point. I talked to some other people that raise quail as well, and their experience was very, very similar to that. All right, the next question comes from a viewer that hit me up through Facebook and wanted to know if I'd talk on my next quail update video about what I plan to do in the wintertime for these birds. I have not raised these birds outside in the wintertime. I kept them in the garage last winter. It didn't get terribly cold inside the garage, so this will be the first year that I'm keeping them outside. So I don't have a lot of experience on that, but I did do quite a bit of research on this and talk to a lot of other people that raise quail outside. And from what I can gather, these birds are incredibly cold hardy. They're going to do just fine in the wintertime as long as you provide them with a draft-free place to get to. I'm going to plan on leaving, I don't know yet, I'm going to experiment with this a little bit. I might cover 3 sides of this cage, the side and the back, and of course this side's already got a wind block, and leave the front open. I'll probably do that with either maybe feed sacks or a tarp or something like that if I need to provide that, and maybe even put some covering on the top to keep it from the wind from blowing in on the top. But I don't think I'll do much to this side of the cage. I'll experiment with that, see how the birds react to that. Okay, this side of the cage is a little bit more enclosed, and this is the one that I plan on doing a little bit more winterizing to. You can see right now what I've got in there is just a couple of nursery trays, like 10-20 trays that you would, start seedlings and things in with sand in them. The birds seem to enjoy that quite a bit, so I'm kind of toying with the idea of getting maybe something a little bit bigger that will cover the floor a little bit more, or maybe even putting in a solid floor and just fill it up with some sand. If it's solid, they won't be able to kick the sand out as quick, and I can just go in with a scooper, scoop out the droppings whenever I need to, a little mesh scooper, and save myself on some sand there. But other than that, I don't think I'm going to have to do a whole lot more to this side of the sand. That'll provide them with wind block from the bottom and all sides, and give them somewhere where they can get into. If I find that they're struggling a little bit with that, then I'll stuff this with some straw or some hay or something like that to give them a little bit more insulation. And I may have to put a covering on top of the cage here to keep the drafts down from on top, but I'm going to watch the birds pretty close and see how they're doing. My biggest concern for wintertime really is keeping them watered, and I just plan on addressing that like I do with the rabbits. I just bring water out to them a couple of times a day in dishes, let them drink their fill of it. It freezes up, and then in the afternoon I'll take the frozen one out, replace it with one with some more water in it, thaw that one out and start all over again the next day. And that seems to work just fine for the rabbits, so I plan on doing the same thing for the quail here. So that's my plan for the wintertime. Stick around though. We'll see how that goes. I'll make adjustments as I need to. All right, not much of an update to give as far as just what's going on with the quail. I've got eggs that just started hatching out yesterday, so I'll probably have an incubation video out midweek this week when those guys get out of the incubator and go into the brooder box. I did have a big escape problem here. If you remember watching in my past videos, I was complaining about these latches being difficult to latch here. Said I needed to fix that. Well, I was out here working on it one day and I couldn't get, I had my hands full with something. I couldn't get this latch to fix, so I just kind of barely just set it there to where it wasn't really latched and thought, well, I'll come back here in just a few minutes and I'll fix that and I'll readdress that. Well, I got tied up in the house, forgot to come back out and readdress it. And the neighbor showed up at my house about 10 o'clock at night with a quail in his hand, knocking on my front door and said, hey, I found this on my back porch. So, wouldn't you know it, this door had popped open and it was just hanging wide open like this. And I had about 8 quail. There was, I think there was 15 or 16 birds in this cage, and I had about 8 of them that just left the cage. Couldn't find them anywhere. I looked and looked and looked. I found one other bird, so I got the one that my neighbor caught on his back porch, and I got one other that was back there, and then I got the 4, or 5 I should say, that never left the cage. They were still in here, and the rest of them disappeared on me. I know my dog found at least one of them because I found the feathers in the backyard. She had eaten the birds. So, you know, my mistake, big costly mistake. I lost about 7 birds. I just moved the birds from the other hutch over to this one. I'm going to use the other hutch as a grow out pen anyway, so it worked out okay for me. It wasn't a tragedy, but still I kind of felt bad because I'm sure those birds didn't last very long with all the stray cats running around the neighborhood. I'm sure that they served as dinner the next morning for some of the stray cats or the hawk that's been flying around or something like that. First thing I did too, let's come back and fix these latches so they're much easier now. When I say they're much easier, now I'm having problems with, there we go. Much easier to close. Well, that's about all that's going on with the quail right now, so hopefully you enjoyed this video. Check out the comments below. I'm finding that lots of people are leaving tips in there, which is fantastic because it gives all my viewers a place where you can see other information about quail. You'll learn a lot from those comments from other viewers too. Leave me your comments below. What are you doing for your quail in the wintertime? Are you doing something different that's working out well for you, or do you have suggestions on what I might be able to do a little bit different? Always open to hearing those tips from other people. Thanks for watching, and as always, God bless.